So, what's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, here with my beautiful wife in Budapest, Hungary. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, I'm AKDI and I'm from Turkey.
And this is episode 58 of Simon and Acti Movie Reviews. And we are reviewing the South African 2022 film Valley of a Thousand Hills, directed and written by a female black South African writer. Her name is Bonnie Sitebe. This is her only film, and I'm very disappointed that this is her only film because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. But what did you think of it, Acti? We watched it yesterday in the evening, and it was a roller coaster. But how did you feel after we watched it?
I felt the drama, and it was like Shakespearean with African influences, and yeah, it was very enjoyable. It's not like it's not the deepest film, but there's definitely like some social commentary in it. There's some deepness to it as well. It's a lot of drama, a lot of like tradition versus modernity, and yeah, it was very interesting.
Yeah, it's simple in its storytelling because it's a classic, lovers, star-crossed lovers who can never be, Romeo and Juliet, West Side Story. But the best comparison I could make of this film is that it's Moonlight meets The Color Purple, but put it in South Africa and give everybody a big niash. That's the best way I could describe this film. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. But yeah, this film stars two South African, all the cast is South African. The three main characters, I would say, are Nosifo, who's played by Mandisa Vilakazi, Tenjiwe, who's played by Sebonkule Nkosi, and Wiseman Ncube, who plays Kiva, the male character here in this film. And I felt like the acting throughout this film was really, really good, very believable. The entire film is in Zulu with only like 3 or 4 words spoken in English. I had never seen a Zulu film before, never heard this much Zulu in my life, but I really liked the language, like the clicking sounds they were making and stuff like that. But aside from the language they were using, like the evocativeness in their acting, the way they brought their characters to life, the way it felt like you were watching real people going through a real situation. I felt it for real. But what did you think?
Yeah, it definitely seems like a story that might actually be real or maybe might happen. Maybe not like this violently, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know, it is. But it's definitely like a conflict that is real.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I also enjoyed the acting as well. And I guess my favorite was the girl that was playing Tenjiwe, and her name is Sibongo Kule Nkosi. So shout out to her.
Yeah, definitely. She was an all-star. Everybody here was all-stars. This movie had been on my list for a long time. I posted it on my Twitter about 2.5 months ago, and we are just now getting around to reviewing it. But I see that this film got on Netflix, and this film probably has been seen by millions of people around the world. And I think, a lot of people might connect with this film because a lot of people live in very conservative parts of the world where gayness, lesbianness is still considered very taboo. Like coming from, Christian conservative Bible Belt Louisiana, there are still places where you can send your kid to conversion therapy to make him not gay. And you're from Turkey, so I'm pretty sure you could relate to this as well. But how do you think the world probably reacts to this film with the context of it being Africa, the two main characters being black women, and them, tackling the subject of lesbianness in conservative worlds?
Yeah, I think like with social media and technology advancing, even though there are like some downsides to it, I do think younger generations in these conservative countries have the chance to express themselves, and I do hope that it's getting more acceptable. But also, there is that thing of like the fear of losing your traditions, and that sort of pressure that's given from the elders. So I definitely think like, yeah, this film is like controversial in Africa or like also many places around the world as well, because thinking of like Turkey, I don't know if we have any like LGBTQ friendly movies. I'm sure we do, but very very minimal.
Yeah, I think this film definitely is controversial because currently what's happening in a lot of African countries is that they are passing anti LGBTQ laws. Like in Uganda, you will be killed, nigga, for being gay. We will kill you for being gay. Like it's not a meme. Like they are really passing laws and brutalizing people who are openly gay. And, I think this film is important for it to be made, especially from it's not coming from outside, right? It's coming from within Africa, like African actors, an African female director telling this story, so it doesn't seem like it's the West, imposing. Like, hey, y'all just start waving rainbow flags and be like us. Like, no, this feels like an authentic, real African story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And it takes a lot of courage like to do a movie like this because of all the traditions.
Right. Like in America, it's sort of like normalized for girls to kiss girls, and in a lot of parts of the world. But I think of like P Valley and how the actor who played Lil Murder, right? Like he had to kiss a man for real and have sex with a man on screen for real, and that could probably like forever damage his career, right? And I'm probably thinking it might be the same thing for these female actresses because there is so much homophobia within Africa. They'll always look at them and say, "Oh, you kissed a woman. You cannot play this sort of character. We don't want your type of people here," and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. So it takes a lot of courage.
Definitely. Now, I want to get this out of the way before, we start the review. But there are some people out there in the world who will look at this film and say, why are you telling these stories about gay Africans or trying to promote homosexual lifestyles in Africa when there's so many other stories to tell? And, me being a person who thinks deeply about blackness and our relation to Africa and black empowerment and a liberated Africa, there are a lot of people who want to spread this sort of message that the homo lifestyle or homosexual activities are un-African and they are unnatural to us. And by making these sorts of stories, kind of glamorizing it to some degree, they're saying that they're promoting something that's unnaturally African. Now, how would you respond to that? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that comes from, I was reading a little bit about the Zulu, which is where, this movie takes place, or like the people in this movie are from Zulu people. So yeah, the gender roles are like just very solidly set. But we also do have to understand that this is like very patriarchal, and it's from our nature. Like being homosexual is natural, and this is something that should be told. These are stories that are very important, and yeah, I totally like disagree that being homosexual is against any culture, and
Mm.
especially like African culture, because African people are people at the end of the day. So being homosexual is not an exception to them as well.
Right, right. Yeah, I would agree with that, and I just want to push back against that narrative because there is this trend amongst criticism of black media that we should be putting out images of us not as in like we're copying the West or being like the white man, but that we're actually telling our own stories in an authentic, true way to ourselves. And like you said, actually, like African people are just people at the end of the day. And no matter how many, crazy anti-gay laws they pass in Uganda or Kenya or Ghana, there will always be gay black Africans. And if we really want liberation for all black people, that includes black queer people as well. And I just want to get that message out there for anybody out there who's going to listen to this review. Don't mean to get too political because this film actually has a lot more to do with problems in relationships than it actually does gay people. Because one of these characters is actually problematic, in my opinion, but we're going to discuss that in the story. So, should I just jump ahead?
Yeah, let's start.
All right. So this film is called Valley of a Thousand Hills. That's actually the name of a real place in southwestern, no, pardon, southeastern South Africa. And it's a beautiful place where the film opens up. You see all this greenery and these rolling valleys and hills and stuff like that. And there's this girl who is working on a house, and she's building the house by herself, like at the edge of one of these hills. She takes off her hat, and we see that this is one of the main characters of this film. We don't know her name yet, but this is Temjiwe. And then the next scene is this young girl, sitting with her father in a room, and she's getting dressed, wearing their traditional clothes. And he is preparing her to have a birthday celebration with all of the people of the tribe. She comes out there. Her father is like one of the elders of the tribe. He's a very respected man, and he sits down on a throne next to this other guy who's dressed like a military commander, and his name is Kiva, right? And the girl who's narrating the story, and the girl who is getting dressed for all of this event, her name is Nosifo. And Nosifo, like, puts she passes some rite, some tradition with her father at this birthday party of hers, that she is now a grown woman and she is now fully an adult. And then they have a dance party and stuff like that. And yeah, the guy that her father is sitting next to, his name is Kiva, and he is like, well respected and very rich because he joined the military. And he is actually the brother of Nosifo's best friend, Temjiwe. So Temjiwe and Nosifo are like talking to each other after the birthday party celebration. And then Kiva comes up and tries to holla at Nosifo. But Temjiwe like pushes her brother away and says, "Go away," and stuff like that. He gets in his car and like drives off. Nosifo and Temjiwe are like having a talk together about their life, and how much they sort of like how they're annoyed by Temjiwe's brother. And then Temjiwe takes Nosifo to the house that she was building and says, "I'm building this house for you. It's a birthday gift." And Nosifo is shocked. And Temjiwe says, "I built this house so we can finally live together away from everybody, just like we've talked about all this time." What did you think about like the opening scene and like the introduction of the characters and, that revelation that early in the film?
Yeah, just the opening scene, it was very symbolic, I thought, because the girl who was building this house, she cut herself. And then I was like, okay, this has to be like something that's, foreshadowing of what's going to happen maybe. But I wasn't sure, of course, and the scenery was perfect. And yeah, it was like not confusing, though it was like introducing you to a different culture, or at least me, because I did not know about like the ceremony of coming of age and this sort of thing. And definitely, once again, I was like, Africans know how to party. They know how to throw it, and the fashion is on point with all the like beads and everything. And right off the bat, like you can see that this movie is gonna be about some cultural clash. I feel like, because there is a lot of tradition in the beginning, and also in the dynamic of when they first encounter like the three big stars of the movie: Nosifo, Tenjive, and Kiva or Vika. I feel like his name was Vika,
I think it's
but anyway, Kiva. I'll say Kiva. When they first interact, like you can definitely see like Tenjive doesn't really like the guy, and Kiva is like interested in Nosifo, but like you don't know what is happening. You don't know if like she's trying to protect her friend, or what is their dynamic. It's like a bit unclear, but it's definitely like a happy beginning, I feel like. What did you think?
So when I first got introduced to the characters here, I said, "Oh, those are the Niyash sisters," because Nosifo and Temjiwe, they hold him for real. Temjiwe is probably the only stud I've ever seen in my life that got my thing twitching a bit. I can't say that I'm attracted to a stud because that feels close to gay. And Nosifo is cute too. Though I think it was funny that she was just wearing a bra at the very beginning. I'm sorry that I'm only talking about their looks. I'm just keeping it real, like as a man. But I thought at the beginning Tim Jiwei was like like a cock blocking friend to Nosifo because Kiva was like trying to holler, and I didn't know Tim Jiwei and was related to Kiva at the very beginning. But I wanted to ask you, like, if your brother tried to holler at one of your friends, would you try to stop that? Like, is that against girl code to like mess with your girlfriend's brother or something like that?
It's a bit of a dangerous territory because yeah, like, I can't say anything if they want to do whatever they want to do, but it feels like if it's too early in their lives and it doesn't feel as serious, it's probably not going to end up well. Somebody's going to break somebody's heart, and as in that situation, you're going to have to like choose a side maybe or stay in between them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a very dangerous territory. I wouldn't say anything, but I would advise at least to eat like my friend and my brother to like, you know, if you're serious, go on. But if not, like, don't get me involved in it.
Mm. Yeah, I wouldn't want my homies to like try to holler at my sister unless he's like really serious, and unless I know he's not one of my slime ball homies. Like he can't be the guy who I know is a dog trying to dog at my sister too. Because let's say you're in a situation like, okay, you see your brother talking to another. No, you see your best friend like hollering at somebody else, but he is like your ride or die best man. But then that's also like your sister too that he's cheating on. So who do you check? Who do you tell? It's too complicated. I wouldn't want that. I don't have
Yeah.
a problem.
In my heart, I wouldn't want it as well.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, when Temjiwe is introduced to the house, no, when Temjiwe introduces the house to Nosifo, Temjiwe seems to be the one who wants to like pull Nosifo in to this world and about being open because she tells Nosifo like, you're a grown woman now, you have a job as a teacher, and you can actually like live your own life. But Nosifo is like hesitant to do it because she doesn't want to anger her father or disgrace her family. By the way, I forgot to mention, Nosifo only lives with her father, who is old and kind of sick because her mother died when she was 12. And sometimes her aunt comes to like take care of her father and help around the house and stuff like that. There's a flashback scene to Nosifo, being at school and how she first met Tim Jiwe. Basically, she was at the school that she now teaches at as a kid, and all the boys used to always try to holler at Nosifo. And Temjiwe would come and like protect her and be like, "Hey, y'all back away, y'all stop being rude. She ain't gonna give you your phone number and blah blah blah." And that's how they sort of like built their friendship. Then fast forward, we have Nosifo working at the same school. She walks into the classroom, and the classroom is a total mess. There's like a hole in the wall. The paintings and pictures are peeling off the wall. She goes to pick up this poster that says "Love can conquer all, even death," and tries to put it on the wall. But then it falls down as soon as she starts speaking, and all the students just like laugh at her. What did you think of like those scenes, building on how they met and Nosifo working as a teacher or anything?
Yeah, like there's definitely that conflict within Nosifo to not disappoint her father,
Mm-hmm.
and then also being true to herself, which goes on the entire movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of understand that because, yeah, like, the people who raised you and made you become who you are, you never want to disappoint them. But at least to me, or maybe thanks to my mom, because she is an open minded person, like, I never had to think about that really. And she kind of allowed me to, be anything. Which was always cool. So I never had that conflict, but I can understand, growing up in a traditional community. And about like their friendship and how it came to be, yeah, it's very cute. It was very heartwarming to see that they were friends since like middle school or something. And yeah, and I like how like you have these two female characters that are kind of opposite, but they have similarities in terms of like their love for each other. But Nosifo is like that girl that everybody wants, and she's feminine and she's beautiful and stuff like that. And then Tenjiwe, although she's like beautiful as well. She's like kind of like a tomboy, you know, strong and standing up for herself, etc. So yeah, it was nice to see like those two opposites.
Yeah. Um, Nocifo seems to be, trying to have the best of both worlds throughout this film, right? And when I think about like how her relationship started with Tenjiwe, I have a theory that, Nocifo sort of was missing that sort of motherly protective figure in her life because her mother died when she was 12, and Tenjiwe sort of filled in that role. And then later on, she fell in love with her. So I think Tenjiwe, saw something in Nocifo that she liked, but Nocifo saw something more than just a girl that she was attracted to. She saw that missing piece in her family life that needed fulfilling. That's my theory on that. Any comment?
Yeah, maybe, but she also does have her aunt, which I like her aunt as well, and she does seem like understanding and someone that Nocifo can share her thoughts with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not like the thoughts of homosexuality, but you know, just like her thoughts of about life and her
Mm-hmm.
struggles. So I don't know about that part, but there's definitely like something about Nocifo. It's like when she's interacting with males, it doesn't seem like she's bothered by it. It's sort of like, you know, she's kind of like, okay, like I kind of like the attention a little bit, but then what she has with Tenjiwe is like more honest and more
Mm-hmm.
herself, and
Mm-hmm.
that's maybe what she likes about Tenjiwe.
Right, right. Well, let's build on that more as we move on forward. So there's a scene where Temjiwe is at her family house and she's helping her father out in the farm with the goats. And, her father is like a goat herder who depends on raising his family off of these goats, but Temjiwe is the one who sort of helps him. And her father comes across as a bit more open minded and a bit more lax and relaxed than Nocifo's father, who we see a few scenes later, telling Nocifo when she comes into the room with food for him to eat, he says, "You're an adult now, and you need to start thinking about, becoming somebody's wife. You need to get married." And so Nocifo has sort of that pressure on her, but you know it's not like Tim Jiway's pressure, which comes from actually another guy. So Tim Jiway works at like a hardware store, which just looking at this, just telling the story, it's sort of obvious that Tim Jiway is like the ultimate stud. She works on fences, she does hard labor building houses, and she works at a hardware store. So she's working at this hardware store looking like the cutest bull stud you've ever seen. And this guy comes in and says, "Hey, girl, come on here and give me a kiss." And she's like, "Ugh, this guy again." And this is Zenzele, who we're introduced to, who is like this mean, thuggish, rough-looking dude. And he's like, "I'm about to be rich. I just opened my own hardware business, and you need to be my girl." And Tim Jiwei is not feeling him at all, and he sort of like is very aggressive with her, and he is sort of like forcing her to be his wife and stuff like that. Yeah, what did you think about the two different pressures that they're sort of on from their family and also from the men around them?
First of all, like I know it's still wrong to be forcing girls to get married and all sorts of things like that, but I do have to like applaud for them setting the age at 21
Mm-hmm.
because like in Turkey or like if you look at traditional Turkish families, very traditional ones or older times, it was like much younger, like
Mm-hmm.
15 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have to congratulate them on that because at least they have like grown titties. They had like their periods and stuff like that. So that sounds just like more humane,
Mm-hmm.
but it's still like a wrong thing to be doing that to girls.
I sort of
And
forgot their age because the entire film, I felt like, is Nocifo like 17? Because number one, she looks hella young. But do they say 21 in the film?
yeah, yeah, they
Okay.
do. And also like really in reality also they have the ceremony at 21. But yeah, Vika also says it as well. So yeah, I don't know, like the pressure of getting married is definitely like such a horrible thing, you know, because it seems like also Nocifo is just trying to figure herself out, you
Mm-hmm.
know, her job, her what does she enjoy in
Mm-hmm.
life, what does she want to do in her future. So it's definitely a lot of pressure, and also like when your father is sick as well, you sort of have to, you know, make him happy in order to not give him a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely a lot of pressure on Nocifo.
Mm-hmm.
And about like Tenjiwe and Zenzele, what was his name?
Yes.
Yeah, Zenzele, and yeah, he is like just coming on too strong. It's obvious that she's not interested in, and yeah, he was funny, like in the beginning, the way like his character comes off, but obviously I did not like that sort of pressure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if I'm being too sympathetic towards these characters, but I feel like the men in this film, except for the ending, which we will get to, you know, the men in this film I'm very sympathetic towards, and I understand them because all they're trying to do is like just exist within the culture that they know, right? And it there was a way for this film to be shot where the men, even though they're only existing within their culture, could come across as cruel and evil. But you know, there isn't this point in the film where the men just start beating on the women, or they, you know, lock them in a closet or anything like that, or commit female circumcision on them or anything like that. Spoilers for anybody who was hoping for that to happen or expecting that, but none of that happens. But the men come across as like, we're trying to maintain this thing that has worked. And it, you know, a part of what makes our culture work is that the girls do get married. You get what I'm saying? So even though, you know, Nocifo's father later on continues to pressure her to get married, I didn't feel like he's like this horrible bad monster. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it doesn't have that impression. I do agree with you. Like, you don't see, for the most part, though there are some exceptions,
Mm-hmm.
these men are not abusing their, you know, place in the society
Mm-hmm.
or their power on women. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, what they're lacking is like seeing that some of the things are outdated, or some of the thing constantly work against women.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like as the world keeps on changing, and you know, for example, Vika is like a guy who is traveling because of his job a little bit. He's in the military, right? So I'm sure like they are in contact with, you know, with technology and everything. So it's what is lacking is that they do have to catch up with certain things that are going on around the world.
Right. I could understand wanting to like catch up with the world, but like when I think about Zenzele, right? Like he is probably a guy who came from poverty and now he's about to become the big baller shot caller. And now he wants the girl he always wanted on his arm. That's a feeling a lot of guys have. You know, that's a big reason a man grinds as hard as he does is so that he can get the girl he always wanted. You get what I'm saying? So I feel for Zenzele in some way, even though he's coming across hella strong, like you said. It's just, you know, I'm glad that this movie didn't make black men the villain. They don't feel like villains to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, they don't. No, I agree. I agree with you. I think like the villain a little bit in this movie is sort of like the system a little bit,
Hmm.
and maybe not even like the system, but just like the unflexibility of it.
Right, right, right. But yeah, moving on in the film, right? Nocifo and Temjiwe have a very touching moment when they're like laying down on a blanket in front of the house that Temjiwe is building, and Nocifo is playing with this cactus, and Temjiwe comes and says, "Take that away; it's poisonous," right? And Temjiwe says something very cute and sweet. She says, "If you died from it, from the poison, I would have died along with you. I would have eaten it too," or something like that. Then they lay down on the mat and have like a very touching moment looking at the moon as it rises. Later on that night, Nocifo goes to like take care of her father, and her father is like really upset because he's sick because he ate too much spicy food his sister gave him. So, you know, Nocifo is like leaving the room, but she finds a note. And in the note, she reads that her father is trying to marry her off to Vika. And yes, Acta, you were right. His name was Vika. Yes, I'm sorry. So Yeah, she takes this note to her friend Temjiwe, who's the sister of Vika, and says, "You know, what should I do? My father's trying to marry me off to your brother." And Temjiwe says, "I'll take care of it. I'll find a way." Then later on, Nosifo has like a conversation with her aunt, and her aunt is totally different than Nosifo and Temjiwe. She's like a woman who was married, but she ended up getting a divorce, became liberated, and is sort of like a rich auntie sort of thing. And she's like giving advice to Nosifo on what to do in this situation. What did you think about those scenes?
Yeah, first of all, it's crazy to not tell your daughter that you're thinking about marrying her off to a person and you know who the person is as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of crazy. Like, why wouldn't you tell that to your daughter? Even though, you might say, oh, she's going to marry him and, this is a must thing that's going to happen, at least tell her. So that was definitely like a backstab from the father.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then about like their conversation of Nosifa and Tenjiwe about the letter, and
Mm-hmm.
Tenjiwe says like, I'm gonna do my part and I'm gonna talk to Vika, but you have to also talk to your dad as well, Nosifo. And Nosifo is such a pussy here.
Mm-hmm.
She like goes and talks to her aunt because she's scared of her father, and her aunt doesn't even know that she has feelings for Tenjiwe,
Mm-hmm.
and she's only thinking of like, oh, I was also arranged marriage and she doesn't love Vika, so I'm gonna like just try to stop it. And it's sort of like, just not coming from the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
even though like, yeah, both things are unacceptable and maybe being gay is more unacceptable. It's still like, it's not good enough for them to stop it, and I felt like that was a bit of Nocifo's fault.
Right, right, right. Yeah, there are parts of this film where I'm sympathetic to Nocifo and then frustrated with her. And at this point of the film, I'm being as sympathetic as I can because God knows, how I would feel if I were a woman in this situation. Like my father is just marrying me off to my sister's brother. And even though I know him, I don't really love him. But you're only doing this for your family status and for your reputation. Now, once again, I'm sympathetic also to the men because I feel like men in this time, they simply want the best for their daughters too. Because, like, think about this. Her father knows he's about to die. And who's going to take care of Nocifo? Sure, she could take care of herself, but, it's a dangerous world out there to be a single woman in a developing nation. So, yeah, he wants a man to take care of his daughter when he eventually passes on. So I'm feeling that. But the arranged marriage situation was just crazy, and yeah, I find it also interesting in the scene later. Vika is sitting at home drinking like alcohol with his father and stuff like that, and Temjiwe's mother comes in there, who's also Vika's mother as well, comes in here and says, "My son is about to get married. We've already sent the letter, but." Vika's father is actually against the marriage because he starts going off on his son, saying, "My son just likes to spend money on cars and drugs and alcohol, and he just likes to show off and stuff like that." But then his wife says, "But you drink your son's alcohol and you ride in his car and stuff like that." But then the father says, "Those are my cows outside. This is my land, and I take care of my business. My son needs to get his own." So he's not with the whole arranged marriage stuff too, which is funny because like this farmer guy is the most open-minded in the whole family and technically in the whole movie, other than another character we'll see later. But then Temjiwe walks in while the family is having this big discussion and says, your son is getting married to Nosifo, and they're all shocked that she found out, right? What did you think about that scene?
Yeah, I definitely love the father of Tenjiwe. He's such a cute guy. He's like this natural farmer guy that just accepts things, accepts life as it comes, and he's acceptive of his daughter as well. Even though he doesn't exactly know what is going on with her, like he can guess, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and at this point of the film I was like kind of had like conflicting feelings about Vika,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes he comes off as sincere and just like this young guy who wants to accomplish things and do things. But at the same time, like, you know, in their conversation, at first he feels concerned that Tenjiwe and his mother has some issues. But then, like, when they start talking about the marriage, he's like, "Oh, I am the best person like she could get. Every girl wants to marry me. I'm the best." Da da da. So then he also comes off a bit conceited as well. So I have like mixed feelings about him.
But don't you think he has the right to be conceited to some degree because, you know, he came from a poor village and ended up becoming something, right? And that's not easy to do in South Africa for a young black man.
I mean, yeah. I mean, we don't know if they're necessarily poor just
But
because
come
they
on,
live in a village.
his father is a goat herder. You don't see anybody else in the village with a car. Everybody else is walking places. He's the only person, you know, who got four wheels under his feet. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, he is. He has accumulated wealth of himself, but like his father also has the ability to like give 20 cows to marry him off. So I don't think they're like poor, poor. They're just like village rich.
That's a very good point. Yeah, his father is balling in cow manure, like for real. Like
I
he's
mean, yeah, that's sort of like the symbol of wealth in, you know, in rural parts. If you have a lot of animals, it's like the same in Turkey.
no, you're right. Because I'm not even gonna lie. When they pulled up to the marriage scene that comes later, and Vika's family pulls up with like the 20 big ass cows, I'm like, damn. Okay, now I see why people are like, what you want from my daughter, niga? Now
Wow.
I get it. Now I get it. But yeah, basically in the next scene, Auntie Nosifo's you know aunt goes to her brother, which is Nosifo's father, and says, you know, please don't do this. Don't let what happened to me happen to your daughter. And Nosifo's father just goes off and says, I will not let a woman tell me how to raise my children. Shut up, beat. And he goes off. And then she says, please, please don't do this. And yeah, Nosifo is listening to everything. Her auntie did the best she could. So then Nosifo runs to Temjiwe, who's still building the house, and says, let's run away together. They're going to marry me off pretty soon. I got to run away from all this. And Temjiwe is like, all right, bet, let's go to Durban, right? And we have to leave tonight because, you know, what could happen tomorrow? I think the marriage was the next day or something like that. So, yeah, they decide to abandon the house that they're building and run away to Durban. That night, you know, Temjiwe is leaving the house, and her father sees her and says, how are you going to leave without at least giving your old man a hug? So then they hug, and then Temjiwe leaves the house. Nosifo is about to leave the house, but then her father is like so sick that it makes her feel bad, and she lays down on the bed. And then in the next scene, we see, you know, Temjiwe like waiting at the bus stop in the rain, in the cold, and Nosifo like wakes up in the next morning and gets married. I also forgot a scene though. After they decide to run away together, they go to a like beautiful African pond in the savannah and like skinny dip naked, titties out everywhere, splashing water on each other. And then we see the first kiss before they go underwater together. That was an experience. That was an experience. But what did you think about all those scenes?
Wow, I just love how you like talk about the scenes that arouse you. You're so cute. You're cute.
Girls kissing girls because it's hot, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I feel really sad for like her auntie, Nasifo's auntie, because she didn't love his arranged marriage husband. And then she decided to go off to Durban to like jump on some dick that she actually liked. And then she ended up like getting a divorce. And now like everyone sort of sees her like this empty person, you know, like this woman who's not really worth anything. But she's like surviving, she's making it for herself. She does look like somewhat wealthy, even though she still carrots from the house. So yeah, like even her own brother is like not defending her and not getting along with her just because she left her husband. And that is such a like sad societal, you know, outcome. And when it comes to like Nosifo, I really thought that Nosifo was gonna like go. And I thought the story was going to be like them figuring out life in Durban, because
Mhm.
when she was talking and then they had that scene in the water and stuff, everything just seemed so happy, so like sincere. And that's what my poor little heart wanted for them
Mhm.
to like run off together. But
Mhm.
it was definitely really a disappointment then, like when Nocifo didn't show up, and yeah, she was like, she decided to get married either way and
Yeah.
sort of abandon herself as well.
Yeah, the thing that I got from that scene when Nocifo didn't leave is that number one, her father, once again, is not like doing this out of the meanness or evilness of his heart, because he sits down with her at the kitchen table and calmly puts his hand on Nocifo's hand and says, Vika is a good man. They come from a good family, and I only want what's best for you. He doesn't say I love you, but that's what he means, right? And Nocifo really still does have love for her father, and her father does have love for her. And I like how in this movie, there's time in this film for those characters to be developed and those bonds to be real. And they're not one dimensional, they're conflicted. You know, every relationship in this film doesn't feel like it's just one way. They feel like there's multiple layers to them, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
And then another big thing I got from Nocifo not going is that, dog, being in a relationship with a person who is indecisive is the worst thing. It's the absolute worst situation to be in. If you don't know if this person wants to be with you, be with their ex, be single, if they, oh God, it's so tiring. It's so frustrating. And Nocifo is like that girl who's like, I don't know what I want, but I don't want this. Like, that's exactly what she is. And it was like, oh God, Tim Jiwei, leave, leave. I was like, run away. I don't know. Am I being too hard on the CFO for that?
No, but like if for me, I was feeling, is she contemplating like being gay? I don't know. Maybe she's thinking, I like dick. I don't know. And I don't, it was like, yeah, she's so indecisive and she does it like bunch of times as well, as we will see later. And yeah, maybe like the first time we can sort of sympathize with her. At least this time I was still like sympathizing with her, you know, she like just being stuck sort of with her father as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you know, the thought of spending the rest of your life
Mm-hmm.
in a situation where it's not you, it's not your personality, and it's not what makes you happy. Like, how can you actually, you know, entertain that idea? Like, that's the part I don't understand. Like, what was she thinking that she's gonna be like just spending the rest of her life like that like unhappy? So yeah, that was definitely very hard to grasp.
Yeah, what I was thinking in Nocifo's mind is that she was trying to figure out, okay, how can I have my cake and eat it too? How can I have the best of both worlds? And I feel like, she was making a lot of rash decisions, but still in the back of her mind, she was like, okay, I'm going to try to figure out how I can still be the respectable daughter, but still have my lesbian girlfriend who I secretly still love. Like, how can I do this? And that caused a lot of confusion on Tim Jiwei's part, because she's like, I really do love you so much. I'm willing to, throw my whole life away, right? Like Tim Jiwei quit her job at the hardware store to run off to Durban with her. But Nocifo was still playing the fence, playing both sides. And so the next day, the wedding happens. Vika's family comes with the 20 cows. Her father sits down and talks with, Vika and his father and say, this is this. Let's do this marriage. The marriage must happen today. I'm glad that you want to marry off my daughter. She's a good girl. She'll take care of your son. Blah blah blah. And so Nocifo is in the kitchen, cooking like the dinner for the wedding along with a bunch of other girls. And then Vika comes in dressed in a fire, three-piece maroon suit. Dog, I want that suit so bad. I need a maroon suit. And he calmly, talks to Nocifo and says, I'll be a good man for you. I'll be here to take care of you. And please don't try to fight me and resist me. You know what I mean? And once again, the black men in this film do not come across as evil, sexist monsters. They come across as guys who are trying to do their best they can in the only system they know. And that's what I got from their conversation in the kitchen. But what did you think?
Yeah, like their conversation in the kitchen. Look, I want to defend the guys in the story, but after this conversation, I sort of, started to grow a little bit of dislike towards Vika
Now, you were the
because
one who said when you watched this film, like, damn, Vika fine. That's what you said.
he's fine, but like if fine does not matter to Nocifo, like it does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
She's not into fine dudes. She's into
Uh-huh.
fine, butch girls.
Okay.
So, like, it does not matter. But yeah, like, I do applause his suit and his fineness. But yeah, like, Nocifo in their conversation says, like, have you ever wondered if I really liked you? Like, if the likeness that you have is reciprocated? Like, why are you forcing me in this marriage knowing that I don't like you like that?
Mm-hmm.
And the way like he's pushing and like trying to touch her face and things like that, yeah, they're trying to go and live their traditions, do the best that what they can within their society and their rules, but also like it's it's like they're sort of taking advantage of some of the rules here
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't have to marry that specific girl. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure like there are a lot of girls lusting over him.
Mm-hmm.
So after like she tells you something like that, why are you still chasing it? Or why didn't you have this conversation beforehand? It's not like you guys were like forbidden to see each other.
Now,
So
now there's an argument some people make that say, okay, these sorts of arranged marriages where maybe the people didn't love each other at first are some of the most long lasting, right? Like everybody always makes that comment, oh, our grandparents' generation stayed together for 80 years. And nowadays people can't stay together for 80 days. Like, is there an argument that maybe, this cultural way of getting married is actually better to some degree? Because it's only recently in human history that we started marrying for love and following our hearts. When in the past, it was a lot about survival and codependence.
yeah, I do think the reason why those marriages, stayed stronger and for longer might be possibly because of the traditions, like traditions and the pressure from the society kept those relationships alive or keeps those relationships alive. It's not the love. And, maybe after some time, because you're stuck with that person, it turns into a friendship because you don't have a choice. So you have to sort of condition yourself in
Mm-hmm.
that sense. And yeah, it feels like to me what keeps those things alive is the traditions and not the love.
Yeah.
And I don't know if which one is better, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on what type of a person you are. And for me, like I wouldn't be able to do something like that
Mm-hmm.
and live my life like that. It would
Mm-hmm.
be like too hard on my heart.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel like those arranged marriages, like you said, they stick together because of culture. Like back then, women were dependent on men. They had no other choice but to stay with your husband. Because what you gonna do? Leave with 3 kids and you have no skills, no education, and just take care of yourself? Like, nah. So yeah, moving forward in the story, Temjiwe, no, sorry, no, Fiso and Vika get married, right? And then Nofiso has to like run to the hardware store to try to find Temjiwe because she's like, I made a terrible mistake. I should have ran away and stuff like that. But she can't find her there because she quit her job. And then there's like a funny, interesting, scene where Temjiwe is at a bar and she looks zoned out while people are like dancing around her. And like Nofiso is like in the classroom while the kids are like tearing down the walls and drawing on the chalkboard, and she looks zoned out. And then Nzele comes into the bar, sit next to Temjiwe. And if you don't remember, Nzele is the guy who tried to holler at uh, Temjiwe at the beginning. He's like, I don't approve of my wife drinking. And I will make you a real woman, a woman who doesn't like women. Just give me 10 minutes or something like that. And Nofiso like leaves Nafisa, no, sorry, Temjiwe tries to leave, and Zele grabs her ass, and then she smacks him back into infinity. Like she smacks him so hard, his head goes off the screen. Like that was a wild smack, and Zele is like pissed off at that. Then later on, uh, Vika picks up his wife, Nofiso, from the school and drives off in the car to like a little hill and says, you know what? I'm going to get married to you, or we're married now, but I have to go back to the city and you're going to stay here. And I'll come and see you sometimes. And Nofiso is like, oh, really? Oh, that's actually great. And Vika is like, "You're not upset about that at all?" And she's like, "No, no, not at all. No, I'm perfectly fine." And he's like, "I sense something wrong is here." Like, what did you think about those scenes?
So yeah, I really like the scene where they show Nisofo and Tenjiwe both like zoning out,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like the screen was switching back and forth between Tenjiwe and Nosifo, and it was really cool. I really love that scene.
Uh-huh.
And then her Tenjiwe's interaction with Zenzele, he
Mm-hmm.
is like such an asshole.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I don't like my future wife to drink, but we can continue this drink in my house. Like, yeah. And
That
she
pickle mind
definitely,
wouldn't work on you in Africa.
no, not with a guy like Zenzele. I don't like toxic masculinity, intense, just macho things.
Hey, stay away from the T word. My guy Matt Villain's in the building. He might get pissed.
Oh, sorry. Oh.
Go ahead, continue the story.
Anyway, but yeah, he definitely deserved that slap, and it was great. I really like got a sense of relief when I saw it. And yeah, like Nosifo in that scene when she finds out like her husband is not going to be with her, she's so sneaky. Like she's okay with just living her whole life in secret.
Mm-hmm.
And then she also expects, like, she thinks, oh, Tenjiwe will be so happy when she hears about this.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like Tenjiwe might not have, similar feelings about that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she's just like so sneaky. And
Mm-hmm.
also, at some points I was thinking, how do these people don't know that, these two girls are together? Because it was a bit obvious. Like, I don't know. Don't you think?
The only person with a gaydar in this entire film is Tim Jiwei's dad. Would you agree?
Yeah, but I was also expecting like Nosipo's aunt to know something was up as well, because in the beginning of the movie she asked like, "Where were you?
The
Where do
thing
you?"
is, the thing
Yeah,
is, as far as I remember, I don't remember a single scene with Nosifo's aunt with Tim Jiwei. Am I wrong?
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe she didn't really know what was going on because she didn't see how Nosifo acted around Tenjiwe. Though if I try to remember, maybe she mentions, her friend every now and then, but I don't remember them being together to see that.
I don't know. Like it's like these two girls disappearing off into the woods together for
Hmm.
hours and hours. Tenjiwe never had a boyfriend, probably.
Hmm.
And yeah, Nosifo is like always with her. She's building a house. I don't know, like people connect the dots. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sort of obvious because I mean, even though Temjiwe is kind of a baddie, that is a butch baddie. Like that is a very strong looking woman who also is could take my girl. I'm pretty sure Temjiwe could take my girl.
There's a high chance.
But yeah, Tim Jiwei is at the house, like building it, after Nosifo finds out that her husband is going to be like an absent husband. She pulls up to the house where Tim Jiwei is building for them and says, "Oh, guess what I found out? Please don't be mad at me." And Tim Jiwei goes off on Nosifo, like, "You left me there in the rain. I was waiting for you that we could run away and be lesbian lovers in Durban, and you abandoned me." And she is pissed, rightfully so. And yeah, Nosifo tries to explain her plan to Tim Jiwei, but she is not really feeling it, if I remember right. Is that right? Like Tim Jiwei
Um,
didn't feel the plan. She wasn't like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." She was like, "That's crazy."
Yeah, I mean, she didn't say like, "Oh, I'm gonna accept it or not," but Nocifo sort of like pitied her way in,
Mm-hmm.
and she just like put her head on Tenjiwe's titties and started crying and hugging her. And
Uh-huh.
then Tenjiwe just like loves her so much
Mm-hmm.
that she's like, oh, like this bitch, if
Mm-hmm.
she's gonna be around, she's gonna be alone, she's gonna be walking around with that juicy butt, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna be able to say no. And on top of it, like my brother is not gonna be able to, see us.
Right. But that's still such a crazy plan to say, okay, I'm going to cheat on my husband with his sister while he's away, while also living in the same village, hell, even the same vicinity, the same house as my husband's family. Like, what, how did she think that was going to work? Like, that didn't even make no sense at all. None. Zero. Zilch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it does not make sense. Yeah, and definitely Tenjiwe did not agree to it. They just sort of had like, I don't know, like a pain cry or
Yeah,
something.
they rekindled their relationship. They showed that the love was still there. Temjiwe was not ready to walk away from Nocifo, but there was still this strain between them because Nocifo was not decisive enough to say she wants to be with her yet, right? She
Yeah.
wasn't ready to come out the closet. And I mean, Temjiwe didn't come out the closet either, but
Yeah, but she was like sort of showing it like when her brother is having a conversation with her before. He says like, "Oh, you didn't have the your 21st age of coming ceremony,"
mhm,
and then like Tenjiwa says, "Yeah, I didn't want it
mhm,
because I looked it up, and that ceremony like celebrates virginity and the age of marriage, basically. So
mhm.
she didn't do that,
Right, right.
which means maybe like she doesn't want to get married."
Yeah. So, yeah, later on that night, Nosifo is at the house that she shares with her husband, and her husband comes in hella drunk, and he passes out on the bed while he's saying to himself, "I'm the greatest. I'm the best man that ever walked the earth." All this stuff, mumbling this to himself as he falls asleep. Nosifo sneaks out of the house, meets up with Tim Jiwei, and then they go into the parents. They go into Tim Jiwei's parents' house, and they kiss and have sex. And it was possibly the best sex scene we've seen all year on film, hands down. Guys, you got to see this film just for the sex scene. It's pretty dope, I would say. And it ends with them like falling asleep, caressing each other on like red satin sheets. These two Miyashi sisters, and then they wake up to Temjiwe's brother opening the door and saying, "What is this? Did you fuck my wife, sister?" Oh God, it was amazing. It was amazing. It was great. What did you think of the sex scene and the fact that oh God, just go.
Okay, well, Vika definitely has some like ego stuff going on in his head. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know why or like what is that about. Maybe it's because like his father is sort of like a down to earth man,
Mm-hmm.
and he sort of ended up being the opposite,
Mm-hmm.
maybe. And also maybe because he actually does know like Nisofo doesn't love him, so he decided to, in order to like face her, he had to get drunk and
Mm-hmm.
convince himself that he's the greatest and any woman would kill to be married to him.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, when it comes to like the confrontation and the sex scene, Tenjiwe does says something like, "Oh, you think we're gonna be sneaking off like children, like for the rest of our lives? Like that's stupid, and I do not want to be any part of that."
Mm-hmm.
But I think also like when they were having sex, Tenjiwe maybe knew like they were gonna be exposed
Mm-hmm.
and sort of did it in that for that reason. Of course, she loved Nocifo too and wanted to be with her physically,
Mm-hmm.
but also like I felt like there was that intention as well, which is like I can't blame that.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that she has a right to do that. But yeah, that scene was definitely like very tender and loving, and I also like the scene not probably for the same reasons that you like it, but sure. And yeah, when the husband like busted into the room and he was like, what the fuck is happening? I'm confused. Am I aroused or am I disgusted? I
He
felt
can't
like
be
that was
aroused.
his mood.
He can't be aroused because that's incest, low key.
It doesn't matter. I felt like that's the look in his eyes were. But yeah, it's like because they are both fine, so they're like in the bed covered in
Uh,
like these red sheets and stuff. So yeah, but anyway, that was
one
definitely like the most dramatic scene I've ever seen in a long time.
Right. Once again, this film is so simple yet so perfect because I feel like all the tension was building up to that scene, but you didn't even see it coming. Right? Like, I guess you sort of knew that there would be eventually a coming out scene where Nasifo and Temjiwe hold hands in front of their family and say, "We are lovers, you will love us," or something like that. But you didn't expect it to be them in bed and her brother walks in. Like, that was really good how they did that. Like it was so Turkish drama, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I didn't see it coming like that soon. It was like the wedding night.
Mm. Yes, and then what happens after is even better because Vika is standing at the door like, "What is this? Did you smash my sister? Did you smash my sister? Did you smash my wife?" And then Vika's mother comes in and starts screaming, "Oh hell no! Oh Jesus, Jesus! I knew my daughter had the devil in her." I knew she was possessed by a demon, and Tim Jiwe is sitting in the bed like a man, like the dyke with the biggest dick in the world, and says, "This is what is happening, mother, brother. I love Nosifo, and she is my woman." And they are just flabbergasted. And I just love the ballsiness of Tenjiwe in that scene because she says it with all her chest. What did you think about the confrontation scene in bed and how Nosifo is just kind of silent? You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
she says, "I'm married now." When Tenjiwe says, "Isn't this right? Like, aren't you going to back me up?" And Nosifo says, "I'm married now." And I was like, I hate this girl. She is the villain. Nosifo is the villain. I swear to God. But go ahead.
Yeah, the way Tenjiwe stands up for her love is so hot. I was like, if she doesn't want you, you can take me, Tenjiwe. Forget about her. Fuck her. It's okay. I will take care of you. Don't worry. And yeah, Nosifo's pussiness is so bad here. Like, there isn't any more perfect time to come forward and be honest. You're literally in bed with her.
Mm-hmm.
And you allow, like, her mom to, bash her and tell her, like, she has the devil inside of her. You allow all this, everyone to, blame Tenjiwe. You
Mm-hmm.
stay silent. It's like there isn't like nothing is more obvious than this. Why are you silent now? It was
Yeah.
so annoying.
Yeah. The cowardice, the level of just cowardliness, that she was in. Oh, it was so hard to watch. And it made me really turn against Nasifo because, like you said, this is the time to stand up for it. Like, you're caught red handed in the act. Matt Villainy jumped into the comments. He says, "What they feed in the girls in South Africa, they be mad thick." You have any theories on that?
No. That natural cow meat? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. All I'm telling you guys out there, I mean, if you're looking for that, go to Tanzania or Kenya or South Africa and be amazed. But as for the story, right, it's kind of tragic that Temjiwe, stood up for her love and then Nosifo, backed down. And then what happens later is very tragic too. The montage of Temjiwe running to the house that she built and she's like throwing rocks at the windows, breaking the whole place down. And then Nosifo is like basically getting raped by her husband. She goes back to her husband's bed and he just starts like humping on her viciously. And he gets up and says, "If you bleed, it's natural," and then just like walks away. And Temjiwe is like, crying at the house that she tried to build for them, and she's just disheartened too. Is one of the most powerful scenes in the film, and it's probably the point where maybe your point of view can change on Vika. That Vika is sort of like villainous because obviously his wife doesn't love him, so why are you like raping her now? And Nocifo, why are you allowing? I hate to say like allowing this to happen, but she sort of let this transpire by not running away with Tim Jiwei right then and there, if that makes sense. But what did you think of that montage? That the reaction to that.
Yeah, I don't also enjoy to say like allow or, she kind of sort of, made her way to it, but it's such a bad thing to say because what Vika did is definitely like horrible. But then if maybe even if she confronted them, then Vika wouldn't be able to like take her into the room, so that's something to, I guess, keep in mind. But obviously, Nosifo is not to blame for her being raped. And that was definitely a sad scene. And also, like Tenjiwe, sort of like her, once again, her dreams being broken by Nosifo as well. And she doesn't even know like what is happening to Nosifo. Yeah, it was definitely very sad.
Very, very. Now, another thing that I thought was interesting was Temjiwe and Vika's mother is sort of like put front and center at sort of like the end of the film. Like in the first half, she's like a side character. You barely even notice her being there. But, you know, Vika gets mad at his mother for forcing him to sort of marry Nofiso, and he's mad that his mother knew all along that Timjiwe might be gay because it's revealed right there that the family had been receiving death threats about Timjiwe because she had been doing like lesbian activities throughout school, throughout all of her life. But the mother kept it hidden from her brother and the family, I guess, because she was like preying on it and making sacrifices to try to get the demon out of his sister. But then Vika's like, how could you betray me like this? Now, Temjiwe and Vika's mother ends up becoming one of the main people who are trying to like turn Temjiwe into a straight heterosexual woman. Why do you think they used a woman in that case to sort of like you know tell that part of the story for Temjiwe? Because I think that's actually kind of deep whenever we see women try to uphold the patriarchy and the norm. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, when it comes to traditions and especially traditions about like being a female, your moms or our moms have like the most impact on us because we can hide certain things from, males. And I feel like a lot of women do that in those type of societies, or we can blame them and turn them into like, you know, antagonists. But with moms, it's different because they're also in the same situation with us, and we're probably even worse. But it's like if they're still, clinging on to certain things, do they know better? And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like, at least as a woman, those were the things I contemplated when my mom, told me to obey tradition, do this, not that, and those sorts of things. And yeah, like women can be the biggest, fanatics of tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And here, what I was thinking is that how people can be so persuaded and so blinded by tradition because everything is just really obvious in front of their eyes that these two women love each other and have actually like had sex with each other,
Mm-hmm.
but they're still like plotting and trying to convert Tenjiwe, and Vika is trying to like is raping Nosifo to turn her as well and make her his,
Mm-hmm.
and put like a baby in her thinking that will fix things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's so much easier to sort of accept the truth and go with the flow, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time it's really hard as well when you're that's into the tradition.
Yeah. Yeah. I always find that fascinating that, women can sometimes be the biggest enemies towards women and like them getting their liberation. Cause like at the same time you have women saying like, we should be able to control our bodies and control our sexuality. You have women on the other side, sometimes more viciously than men, saying, no, you can't control your bodies the way you think you can, or no, you shouldn't be gay. Why are you gay? You get what I'm saying? I find that fascinating, and
Yeah.
it's very equivalent to some of the issues we have going on the black side of the aisle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely like a level of toxic protectiveness
Mm.
Because maybe in this case, at least, Tenjiwa's mom is like, if she's going to be coming out, or if any of this is heard, like, she's going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't want her daughter to be hurt, and she's using this sort of very tough love on
Mm-hmm.
her. And then also she does have like centuries old traditions that were told to her,
Mm-hmm.
and she herself is not gay. So it's just very hard for her to understand her daughter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But once again, the acting in this film is so good, and those scenes were very crucial for this film to like make it to being excellent, and the way they were executed, from the acting to the way they were shot, using the natural lighting and letting the darkness of the night fill the room. It was very masterfully shot, and I love it. I love that part of the film so much, so much. Uh, so yeah, basically, Vika runs into the room, yells at his sister in his face, like, "You're not leaving this house. We're gonna send you to conversion therapy. We're gonna send you to the witch doctor, basically to cure you of being gay." And so, yeah, Vika it puts his sister in a car to be transported to like some witch doctor in the mountains, and Nosifo runs after the car and says, "No, no, Makida, Makida," and yeah, the car drives off, and she's crying. She's in the house. No, Vika says, "This is good for her. This is good for Tenjiwe. This will fix her, just like how I'll fix you." And there's also a really cool scene where there's like the three mirrors looking at Vika from the ground up, but also you see Nosifo's face as she's crying. That's one of the coolest scenes in this film. I love the way that's shot. And yeah, basically, Temjiwe is taken to this village up in the mountains where all these women are doing like traditional African religion, like they're crawling on the floor and clapping while praying to God and stuff like that. And this is a place where she could be essentially, have her spirit cleansed. And when she's up there, like one of the people tells her, like, the witch doctor lady will tell you what your spirit says and what your ancestors are telling you, and she will decide whether you're meant to be here or not. Meanwhile, back in the village, Nosifo's father gets news of everything that's happened, and he damn near has a heart attack and dies. And then Nosifo goes to the house that Tenjiwe built and sees that a lot of it has been destroyed because Tenjiwe was so upset about everything. Like the mirrors are broken and stuff like that. What did you think about like all of those scenes?
I felt really sad that they sort of forced Tenjiwe to go to the retreat, because I felt she was almost like questioning her gayness and her, like, her feelings as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's been betrayed by Nocifo so many times, and then she constantly has this like talk of her mother telling that she has a demon inside, and plus her brother now. So I felt like, she was almost a person that is so sure of herself was questioning herself.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, even though like she forcefully arrives there, it did look like a serene place,
Mm-hmm.
and I did feel like, okay, maybe she will find some sort of relief there, or at least like she will be away from the all of the drama that Nocifo is causing her
Mm-hmm.
as well. And yeah, when it comes to Nocifo, it was still so annoying. And yeah, like that beautiful scene with like the three mirrors, and where Vika has that conversation with Nocifo, and he's saying like, don't let my sister influence you. Maybe if you're like that, though, if you're like that, like, I don't know, but if it's her influence, then like we can solve it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still like silent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like once again, disappointing.
Disappointing ways that Nocifo is acting, especially like going to the house and crying now. Like you've had so many opportunities to like get it right. And yeah, you're going to have to be brave. Yeah, it's scary coming out as a gay person in this conservative country, but you got to do something, Like Nocifo is so frustrating at this point because once again, an indecisive partner is one that you don't want at all. And another thing I want to say is like I really like how in this film the African culture feels so authentic. Once again, Shout out to Bonnie Sitele, whoever the director was. Please make more films. Please tell these stories, because the way she shoots this and the way she, shows the African dancing, the religious practices, the style of dress and the jewelry and everything, it feels so authentically real, right? It doesn't feel like you're watching like a parody of an African movie or an overdone African movie or an African movie that makes Africa just look like hell on earth. Like, this feels like a true ass sad story, but done in a beautiful way, that feels really black and African and just so good, so good. That's all I got to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, and also like you said, there's no demonizing of one or the other side in this movie. Like, it's still very respectful to everything African, but
Mm-hmm.
then also trying to grasp, what we have come to realize with modernity as well,
Mm-hmm.
like homosexuality or accepting homosexuality and conceptualizing it, etc., etc. So I also like it. The director did a great job of like portraying those two conflicting sides,
Right.
but not making them enemies.
Yeah. Yeah. And not making this a gender war issue, too. Like, I don't think you can watch this movie and say, oh, black men are so bad. Right. Because even though, there's a scene where Nvika and Nafosi sit down together on the bed after everything happened and he's like talking to her, he's still like sympathetically trying to convince her, like, I am a good man. Give me the chance to prove I can be a good husband. I want to do this. And I do like you. But Nafosi like just doesn't want it because of everything that has happened, right? And yeah, that's what I like about this film. It doesn't make you hate the people. It doesn't make you afraid of Africa. It doesn't make you, despise these people. It just makes you want to try to understand. But one of the most interesting scenes happens next. So basically, the next day of Temjiwe being at the witch doctor village, she has to go meet the witch doctor. And she walks into the hut, and her mother is already there with the witch doctor, but the witch doctor is screaming, like, like, my spirit will not connect with yours. The ancestors are telling me that there's nothing wrong with this girl. And Temjiwe's mother is going off on the witch doctor, like, what are you talking about? She is possessed by demons. And I paid you all this money, and you are telling me that I am wrong? And the witch doctor basically says, whoever tells you that loving a person of the same gender is a crime does not know what our ancestors really want for us. The witch doctor then looks at Temjiwe and says, you were born this way. You are not possessed by demons. And Temjiwe's mother is so pissed. She's like, I will take, her to another witch doctor. And the witch doctor says, go ahead, do it. But you can leave. The witch doctor banishes Temjiwe's mother and says, don't ever come here again. And I don't want to see her around here. But the witch doctor tells Temjiwe, you can stay as long as you want. But please know, if you stay, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. You're staying here because it's your own choice. What did you think about the witch doctor scene?
Yeah, I loved that scene. It was so powerful, I think, because it was, for me at least, the message I got from it was that actually the in the core traditions are not really against these sorts of things. They're not against homosexuality or loving the person that you want, and tradition allows that and wants that to happen. And it was sort of giving that message of truce between tradition and homosexuality, or religion and homosexuality, like whatever it is, and sort of pointing out the naturalness of the whole thing, having feelings for a person no matter what their gender is. And it was more so of like, maybe like the shape that the traditions take, that are very demanding on the soul and on our psychology, and yeah, like trauma that comes from the traditions. Maybe that's the most unhealthy thing, and not actually the tradition, the society itself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I want to ask you something, Acti. Have you ever sat down and thought to yourself, what exactly is the reason why people hate gay people?
No.
No.
I mean, because it's not the norm, maybe because it doesn't allow for babies to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Right
Like
out of
that's
my
what.
head, like this is what I think of.
Yeah, yeah. And I was thinking about this in the film, right? Like when the witch doctor says that, there's nothing wrong with you, and also thinking about what you were saying. Think about this. What if Nofiso's father says, okay, you don't want to marry Vika, you can marry Temjiwe because it is you marrying into the same family. I want my family to be with the, rich cow herder over there. So yeah, marry Temjiwe. But the big problem with a homosexual relationship is that bloodlines will not continue, at least naturally, right? Through or in a continuous way that makes sense in direct lineage. So I think one of the big reasons people dislike homosexuals, or some people dislike homosexuals, is because as a species we're programmed to think about our survival and the continuation of the human race. And with homosexual relationships, that negates the possibility for bloodlines and our genetic species to continue. So I think that's why, people probably deep down inside hate gay people.
Yeah, but if you contemplate on that, you're sort of making a person's life hell just because you're thinking of a life that is not even in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
You're sort of like, demonizing homosexual people for a baby that is not born or have maybe doesn't have the possibility of being born.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't make sense. But I understand that it's like how people have lived, humans have lived for centuries in
Mm-hmm.
order to survive. So
Mm-hmm.
I get that sort of survival instinct that comes
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Evolutionary biology. But continuing on in the story, after Temjiwe has this revelation, and she's told this by the witch doctor, Nofito is having her own revelation, sitting at the edge of this cliff overlooking the beautiful valley of 1,000 hills. And she takes a deep breath and realizes, I have to actually grow a pair of balls. So later on that night, she, approaches her husband, who's drunk as hell in the bedroom, and says, "You know what, Vika, I'm not mad at you at all. I don't hate you, Vika, but I'm done with this, and I'm leaving." And so then the next day, Nofiso packs up her bags, looks her stepmother directly in the eye, and says, "I'm gone. I'm leaving this place, and I never want to return." And yeah. Temjiwe then like dresses up in like a red pants power suit, goes to school, bosses the kids around, cleans up the desks and stuff like that. And all the kids are happy and cheer for her when she, finally puts up a new poster on the wall that says "Love can conquer everything, even death." They all clap for her, and that's a callback to the beginning of the film when the sign fell on the floor. Then, Nosifo, after work, climbs up the hill to where Temjiwe is in the village and says, "Where's Temjiwe?" They take her to her, and Temjiwe found a new baddie. She's sitting down at a waterfall with her titties out with another, girl that she met there at the village. And Nofiso is like, "I'm ready to be with you, Temjiwe." And Temjiwe is like, I tried everything I could, but you waited too long. You played too many games. You played too many games, Nofiso." So then Tenjiwe goes back to her new boo and continues to flirt. And yeah, later on, Nofiso goes to the house and she starts rebuilding the house, like constructing the roof, fixing the lights and stuff like that. And then, she falls asleep under the stars and she wakes up and says, "Is this a dream?" And Temjiwe is back there at the house. And they start, fixing the house. There's like a funny montage where they're like pushing each other in the wheelbarrow, like throwing paint on each other, laughing, smiling, ha 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 ha. And then they fall asleep in each other's arms. And, you think that's the end of the movie because right now we're at the 1:30 mark and there's only like 3 minutes left on the screen for runtime. But then Happily Ever After ends when late at night a car pulls up and we hear male voices say, "All right, load up everything, guys." And Temjiwe and Nofiso are awoken to the sounds of a man kicking in their door, and it's Enzele. Enzele is back. The man who tried to sleep with Temjiwe at the beginning of the film, he's back. He's with his boys, and he has come for business. And one of the guys that is with Enzele is like, please don't do this. That's not what we came for. But, Enzele says, shut up, nigga. And he, slaps Nocifo on the floor and then begins to rape Tenjiwe in front of Nocifo as she passes out. Uh, wow. What did you think about that? Like, don't get to the ending yet, but what did you think about, how the happy ending turned into a very dark ending at the very end?
Yeah. I mean, when Nocifo grows her pair of balls, I was like, finally, but it does feel like it's too late. With everything that happens, it's like, oh, like maybe, you're starting to grow up, but I don't think you're gonna get the girl back. That's what I was thinking when she showed up in the sanctuary and, all of those things. And finally, like, she was able to stand up to her father, her mother-in-law or ex-mother-in-law, I guess. And, I do think also Nocifa owed Vika an apology as well, because, by not telling him the truth as well, she did sort of play with his feelings too, because I think Vika was thinking, maybe I can enchant her with my dick. Because he definitely trusted his abilities in that, sense. But, he didn't know that she was not into dick. So yeah, that was the part where I was also expecting a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and when it comes to like Nocifa waking up and Tenjiwa was there, I was like, oh no, like, oh, she's gonna disappoint her again. Like, don't go to that bitch. Don't. You deserve way better, Tenjiwa. But yeah, I was also like happy, of course, a little bit with their cute little montage, all like, finally it's happening, it's the happy ending. I did not see that last part coming for real. I was not expecting that at all. I was just like expecting credits to roll.
Yo, when it happened and we were watching it, we both said, "Oh no!" Like,
Yeah, we
apart,
both thought Vika was coming.
yeah, yeah. Like, I did not expect Enzele to come back, though I should have. But that's what I think is good about this film. They make you sort of forget about Enzele, so that when he does come back, you're like, "Oh God, yeah, he
Yeah.
did get the snot smacked out of him. He wants revenge."
Yeah, that was crazy. Like, was that all for like the slap? How obsessed is this man with this girl? Like, I was just thinking that, like, how obsessed are you? Because
I
this
mean, he
is
saw he saw Temjiwe's Instagram. I posted the Instagram on Twitter, so maybe that's why he's obsessed. Everybody, if you look under the comments of this video, you'll see
okay.
why.
Okay, we get it. She has a big niash. She has a very niashi niash. Okay, we get it. But it's just, it was like pure act of pure like greed and yeah, it
Hmm.
was really horrible.
Hmm. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was definitely a shock when we saw it. A part of me felt like, oh, cliche, cheesy, happy ending. Okay, but I was like, you know what? If anybody deserves a happy ending, these two do. And I was actually going to be okay with like a, sweet happy ending, right? Seeing the twist at the end, I thought maybe there was going to be a chance for like Vika to get redemption. Like Vika was going to come at the last minute and kill Enzele and say, nobody hurts my sister or something like that. I was hoping maybe for that to be tied up, but yeah, it was just very traumatic, because that's a real thing too. Like, I was thinking that, like, these two girls living at the edge of civilization, on a hill somewhere with no protection, yeah, guys could run in there and like do whatever to them, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it didn't feel unreal, or it didn't feel like a cheesy action part of the movie.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, the next scene after Nofiso looks and sees her girlfriend getting raped by this crazy stalker guy. The next scene is like Nofisa wakes up and she is like painting the house, finishing, and she says to Temjiwe, who we cannot see, she says, "See, Temjiwe, I knew red was a good color." It's a beautiful house, isn't it? And all we see is Nofiso standing in front of the house and a reflection of Temjiwe in the mirror. And then she says, "Well, time to go in." And she walks into the house and like closes the door, right? And then in the next scene, we see that Nofiso is laying on top of a gravesite with a cross that has the name of her dead lover. So we realize that, Temjiwe actually died that night that Nzele broke into the house and raped her, right? And the last thing we see is Nofiso holding a cactus, the same poisonous cactus that Temjiwe said she would eat if Nofiso ever got poisoned. And we see Nofiso laying on top of the grave holding the cactus, and we presume she's dead. And the film ends with two eagles flying in the sky, next to each other, and fade to black. So, yeah. What did you think about the ending?
Yeah, there was also like a flashback to their conversation where, like we talked about, they said, like, what if, you died after all the plans that we made? And
Mm-hmm.
then, how Tenjiwa says, I would eat the plant and die with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sort of what happens. And I was definitely like in a mind fuck when, Nosifo was painting the house. I was like, okay, what happened? Like, what is happening? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was definitely a shock, like seeing all the rape scenes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was still traumatized from that. And
Mm-hmm.
then it sort of switched into that happy scene again. And
Mm-hmm.
then we see the death and the suicide. It was very Romeo and Juliet, in this case, Juliet and Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was definitely sad. Like, I was expecting a happy ending,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like a bit traumatized. And it was like, oh, Nocifo, like, it's too late. Like, the
Yeah.
shit is too late. And
Mm.
yeah.
Now, a part of me is like, the ending is very dramatic and it is powerful. It just, I feel like it happens too abruptly. Like the way it's done, it feels like it was like a last minute decision. Like, okay, let's shoot these last two scenes and see if we could like tack this on at the end to like make it even more dramatic than this film already was. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, a part of me is like, I like and hate the ending at the same damn time. It's conflicting for me. What do you think?
Yeah, the pacing was a bit off because it was like, okay, they had like 1 hour, 35 minutes of screen time, and it was like they were limited to that. But they didn't know it. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like they took their time telling the story in the beginning, but then the ending was sort of wrapped.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like, and everything just happened so fast. And those ending parts were actually the most important parts of the movie, like the climax and everything. So it did feel a bit like just weird in terms of pace, how they took their time in the beginning, you know showing different things, scenes, conversation of different people, and
Mm-hmm.
then at the end was just a bit like of a recap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So it does make the film like stick in your mind. Like you will always remember that last scene, especially the scene with like you know Nosifo standing in front of the house and all you see is Temjiwe in the mirror. I don't know why that's just very haunting because I'm imagining like something like that happens to you, God forbid, and like all I have are memories of you now. You know what I mean? Like that would be so painful. You know, but I felt like if you're gonna take the film to that direction, like make it be a tear jerker, like that is longer. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like it's built up to the point where you're gonna definitely feel that loss until like the film comes off and you're like, wait, what? What did I just see? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely feel more shocked than sad
Yeah,
because you don't have time to digest everything that happened
exactly,
in the last like 5 minutes of the movie.
exactly. But overall, I still think this is an excellent film with so many interesting things to talk about. And it's a great African film that more people should see. And I'm sure millions of people have seen it. But my score for this is like a 9. You know, just the ending really kind of gets me. But what do you think?
Yeah, actually, yesterday I gave it a 9 when I was talking to you, but now
Mm,
I'm gonna give it an 8.
mm. Why?
There's no like particular reason why, like, it's not because like our discussion I downgraded. I just do realize we did see like a really good movies, and I just have to be fair to all the other movies. But definitely, like, this movie is one of the greatest movies I've seen, especially this year.
Hmm.
It's just that in terms of like how the story is told, it's a little bit simple, which works for this movie.
Hmm.
And yeah, like the pacing is a bit off
Hmm.
at certain points. And yeah, that's my score.
I got you. I can understand like all of those things, like because the movie is so basic and simple, and because there is a bit of slower pacing in it, it can make this film, just seem as, you know, simple as nothing really too outstanding. Like it's good, but it's not outstanding, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a good drama.
mhm,
But at the
mhm.
same time, like you said, it did disappoint a little bit when it came to like the tear jerking part of it.
Right. I mean, we've watched a few African films this year. We saw Mami Wata, we saw Miss Mandela, and now we've seen Valley of a Thousand Hills. And I have a few more African films on my list that I would like to see. So, I think this film will rank pretty high, if not win the award for Best African Film this year in our Oscars that we're going to do at the end of the year. So
Hmm.
I'm going to be fighting for this film to make it, but let's see what else we see. But it is one of the better African films in recent memory I've seen, and it's done so well, and it's definitely needed, to talk about these issues and do it in a way where you're not demonizing anybody, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah, this was all I got to say about the film. Is there anything else that we should tack on?
I'm good.
Yeah. All right, so this has been episode 58 of Simon and Acting Movie Reviews. If you have any others that you think we should talk about that are worth watching, please put them in the comments for us. We're going to continue to try to be consistent and persistent on releasing these episodes. So holla at me anytime on Twitter and subscribe to Simon Hill Keeps It Trill on YouTube. Subscribe to Cinema Crossroads on Spotify. Subscribe to Backpack Bandits, our travel content on YouTube as well. And peace.